There you've got Sidney Powell, Michael Flynn's attorney, accusing the FBI of plotting to frame her client while insisting that President Obama was involved. Here on the growing fallout is Republican Senator from the great state of Utah, Mike Lee, who is down in D.C. area. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You know, when you look at everything that has happened to Michael Flynn, and as high up in the federal government that this frame job could go. You know, Sidney Powell says the former president, Barack Obama, was involved in just that. It is, as you have said, a travesty, if true.
There is no question that this was a travesty, and there's no question that this calls out for reform within the FBI. I believe the best place to start for reform at the FBI really begins with our effort to reform the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, this week in the Senate. And that's why I've introduced, along with Senator Pat Leahy from Vermont, a bipartisan amendment that would substantially reform FISA and make things like this less possible in the future.
Yeah, you know, we did hear from the Department of Justice, Senator, the Inspector General, the DOJ IG, who took a look at what happened, particularly the FISA applications regarding Carter Page, and I think they found 17 big mistakes, glaring errors that the FBI was responsible for, just to make sure that they did get the FISA application approved and then reauthorized 3 different times. You know, there is so much that happens with this secret court that's a secret, and you would like to see some third-party oversight. Explain how that would work.
That's right. Under the amendment that I've introduced with Senator Leahy, an amendment that I believe is going to pass overwhelmingly in the Senate this week, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court would be required to appoint a third party known as an amicus curiae, or a friend of the court, with the security clearance, someone who would be able to review these documents as they're being presented, to make sure that we have more recourse, other than to say, oh, sorry about that, when after the fact we discover the FBI has made some mistakes.
So what the Senate is going to do this week is going to consider the House bill to essentially reauthorize. The Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who's in your party, has said, you know what, we don't need any amendments. We're just vote on this straight through. Why doesn't he want the protections that you are trying to make sure go forward?
I'm not sure. You'd have to ask Senator McConnell that. But what I do know is that most of my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans alike, want FISA reform. And we understand that the precise mixture of the so-called reforms put in place by Nancy Pelosi's House of Representatives in their bill that they passed a couple months ago is inadequate. It doesn't do the job. They made some errors. Perhaps there was a good faith effort underway over there to bring about reforms, but the reforms we need are found in the Lee-Leahy amendment, and that's what's going to pass this week.
Well, you know, what's curious, Senator, is the fact that had there been third-party oversight or some sort of oversight with this particular provision of the FISA, you know, you would think that the FBI would not have been able to get the FISA application approved to spy on Carter Page and, by extension, the entire Trump campaign, or the 3 reauthorizations. So, you know, we might have had a much different past 4 years had there actually been FISA oversight.
Yeah, that's right. That certainly would have been the case, for example, with respect to General Flynn. We know that disgraced FBI agent Peter Strzok took 3 weeks before submitting a report. And during that 3-week period, between the time when he interviewed Flynn and the time he issued his report, he made substantial modifications to it. This, along with a number of reports we've received recently from the Inspector General's office of the Department of Justice, make clear to us that we really do need reform of this agency. It's a good agency, but it's run by fallible, mortal human beings who lately have made quite a few mistakes. We need an extra set of eyes. That's why we need an amicus appointed in any significant investigation, any sensitive investigation, including one that would involve a public official, a public campaign, a political staffer, a media organization, a church, anything like that. The FISC, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court, really ought to have that opportunity.
Well, that is your amendment they're going to consider, we do hope, and it is bipartisan with Patrick Leahy, the Democrat, which we don't see much bipartisanship going on in Washington, D.C., so that would be something new for a change. Senator, thank you very much for joining us on this Monday morning.
Thank you, Steve.